Mental Mastery Golf Podcast by Dare to Dream. The show dedicated to fun, practical mental performance strategies for your golf game. Join mental performance coach Jamie Glazier and co-host Ross Flanagan as they discuss how to manage your mind in one of the craziest sports there is.
Well, welcome back to the Mental Mastery Golf Podcast. My name is Ross Flanagan, your co-host, and this is a very special episode today because it's a couple of firsts. It's our first international edition, and we have our first guest on the podcast today. We've got Jamie Glazier, the CEO, founder of Dare to Dream, over there in the US of A. He's over there on assignment in Alabama, I believe. Jamie, how are you? I'm going to bring you in. G'day, how are you going?
Roscoe, very well. Yes, we're in, I'm in Dothan, Alabama this week. So first time to Alabama and, beautiful part of the world.
Well, I said it's a special episode, so it's episode 10. So we've hit the double digits, and well done to you, sir, on getting us this far. They say if you can get past that sort of 8 or 9, then you are a serial podcaster. So I think we spoke the other day, and we're going to keep this going full steam ahead. We both are on it. So, and we've got a guest there alongside. You've got one of your clients there that you're doing some work with. Who have you got there with you?
Yeah, I'm very lucky and privileged to bring JD Hughes on the podcast today. So JD, welcome and thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you, Jamie. It is an honor. Pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah, JD's a golfer out of Pennsylvania. He's from, but lives in Orlando, Florida, and been working with JD for a few months now. And we're here for the Canadian Q-School, so Mackenzie Tour Q-School. So, I'm lugging his bag around this week, so he's been kind enough to keep it pretty light, but I'm getting my fitness in, and it's been fun so far.
Well, we'll come back and we'll have a bit of a chat about the event that you're playing in and what you guys are up to in a minute. But I guess we should introduce this week's topic, and it's a really, really important topic for everyday golfers like you, like me, club golfers out there just trying to be better, trying to improve their mental performance to be better golfers, and could be one of the most significant factors in improving your mental performance. And that's the topic of focus. We've been through a few notes. I'm still, as I always say, learning this journey alongside you here, Jamie. I understand the concept of focus, but just in our brief chats, I know that my focus level needs to lift, and I'm really keen to learn how to improve that. So take us through what focus means. What's the run sheet for today's podcast? Over to you.
Yeah, look, focus is it's obviously a very interesting topic because it can get confused or it can get blurred a little bit. And I know, you and I, when we play, and my last game of golf, for example, that we played before I came was nothing short of a train wreck, those first 6 or 7 holes, mainly because I was flying out the next day. I had so much on my plate that I was trying to do. Really my focus was not on golf at all. And so I think the important thing that I try to clarify with this topic is the difference between concentration and focus. And for me, concentration is something that we do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our mind is always concentrating on something. But I would talk concentration when it comes to the game of golf as multitasking. Is our mind is thinking about multiple things at one time, and that is concentration, where focus is more so getting rid of a lot of the stuff and just having an isolated attention on one thing and one thing only. Now, whether that is for a round of golf, whether that is for just one shot, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, just being able to have your mind focusing on one thing at a time is really what the art of focus is. And it's something that really does help increase the quality of golfers' performance.
So I was thinking about that and trying to just relate it to normal day, everyday world for everyday golfers like you and I. And I think about myself, and you'd mentioned multitasking. And I run around, 12, 13 hours a day in business, and I pride myself on my ability to multitask. I've got customers over there that I need to talk to. I've got an order over here that I need to press send on. I've got a phone call or several of to return. I've got some reports to do. And it just has to get done, and it just seems to get done by having an ability to multitask. And I think good multitaskers wear that badge of honor, with a degree of pride, because they have this ability to keep everything, all the balls up in the air. And then I think about, well, hang on, how more effective could I be in a working sense if I could sit down and have defined blocks of activity without any other distraction, without the necessity to multitask and just focus on an individual task for a period of time. So then I think, well, how does that relate to golf, Ross? I hear you ask. Golf for me,
I do.
Golf is a big game of multitasking if you look at it in such a way. You've got the shot you've just hit, the shot you need to hit, the hole that you've just had, the score that you've just had, the bunch of scores that you've got on the card so far, how far ahead or behind you are, the time that you're keeping, the other people that are around you looking for balls. There's just eternal multitasking going on, which, if you don't have this ability to focus on every shot at every time, can really be the unraveling of your game. So that's how I see sort of focus for me, and multitasking, and that sort of understanding the difference between focus and concentration. Yep. Does that make sense?
And you said it. You said it absolutely beautifully. And it's not to say that multitasking is not an important key element of golf performance, or in your business, or if there was a surgeon that was executing an operation, they're multitasking. Their mind is thinking about so many different things, but the real key is to be able to be present to what you're doing right now while you're still juggling the balls. Okay, so it's having an understanding of the holes that you've just played, the holes that are coming up, your potential score, what potential, like for JD, for example, potentially, what score you might need to have a successful week this week. It's having an understanding of all those multitasking components, but then bringing your attention back to right now. What do I need to do right now in this moment? Where am I? What's the shot? What do I need to do? And almost pause all those other juggling components so that you can be present to this one moment. Sometimes when we multitask, we don't pause those other components, and then our mind can wander, and what I call internal interruption, we can have this interruption to our focus, and that ultimately has a decent negative impact on our performance.
Mate, I can just give you an example of just in that moment, just right then. I said there before, and I apologise again, that my phone rang, and it was a customer.
Yep.
And sending me a text.
Yep.
And I've just had to reply to that while you were talking, and I listened to everything you said, but I lost focus. Yep. In that moment, I lost focus, and my commitment to you was not optimum. It was not 100% in that moment. So that's exactly the same as that golf shot. My commitment to the golf shot wouldn't have been the same, because I was distracted by the phone ringing, and I went and dealt with it, and the phone shouldn't have been on. So once again, I apologise to the listeners. But it's a good example of for me, in that moment of focus and losing focus because I'm multitasking, I didn't give you 100%.
No, look, and the other thing is that you probably did a really good job then of dealing with the things that you had to deal with in that moment, dealing with the customer while also listening to me. You probably did a really good job of managing that. And on the golf course, sometimes, and obviously the better golfer you are, the more you can get away with a poor focus, because of just, you can hit golf shots with your mind distracted and sometimes hit good golf shots. But from a long-term point of view, it's like gambling. Yeah, anyone can go and put $100 on black at the casino and win. But if you do that 100 times, the chances of coming out in front are quite minimal. So it's more about, for me, awareness and recognition of where is my focus, and potentially what are the interrupters to my focus, because having that awareness of what things could take me away from this moment is so important, because if we don't recognize those, then they can pop up without us really even knowing.
Absolutely. So what are some of the things that you need to look out for as interrupters to focus if we are on this, building this stronger ability and stronger muscle to improve our focus? What are the interrupters that you need to be aware of?
I mean, that's so specific to each individual, and it's an important one for me. When I work with clients, we get them to recognize what are the potential interrupters to focus. So sit down. What are the things on your mind? Possibly before a round of golf for club level golfers, sit down, think about, what is on my mind, what could sort of pop up during this round of golf that I need to be mindful of and be aware of, and then what can I do about those things right now that might sort of stave off some of that interruption to focus during the round. If you can send one quick message to say to someone, hey, I'll give you a call after the round, then you've parked that from being an interrupter. That's not going to interrupt your focus during the round because you've taken care of it. Okay, and the next step of actioning that is making a call after the round. So it frees you up to have to worry about that during the round of golf. So everybody's interrupters are very different, whether it's work-related, whether it's an injury that you're dealing with, whether it's, there's just so many facets that could impact and interrupt focus. I think the important thing is for everyone to just sit down and take time and recognize what they could be for you.
Yeah, right.
Which I didn't do in our last round of golf. I just went there going, I'm traveling tomorrow, so I'm just going to go out and have a really nice morning. And I didn't sit down and go through those interrupters to focus, because when I realized it, as soon as I started to think about one thing, that led to 4, 5, 6, 7 other things that I hadn't really thought too much about, but they were all related. So, that was an important thing for me to really make sure when I come back and I'm playing golf for me, have to go through that process so that I can allow myself better ability to focus when I go out and play.
It was interesting for me to watch you on that round because I know you pretty well by now, and I could see that you were very distracted. And it's unlike you, like playing good golf or average golf, or having whatever score is. That's not unlike either of us. That's normal.
Yeah.
But what wasn't normal that day, that I could see that you were very distracted, almost to the point that you were unhappily distracted. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but you were frustrated. And I don't know what part it was in the round where we just sort of checked in and said, mate, we're here now. Yeah. We're on top of the grass. The sun's out. You're heading on the plane tomorrow. You're off to do some great work with some great people. And I don't know if that meant anything, but your sort of golf certainly picked up after that point. I think your golf performance level improved, and I think your happiness or your mood certainly lifted as well. So I don't know if that was a thing, but it certainly was something that I noticed, and it was very unlike you. But now that you articulate it and talk about it, you obviously had a lot going on, and you could probably be doing several other things with your time out there playing golf with a couple of legends, myself and Sam Doherty, mind you. Who wouldn't want to be part of that group?
No, that's right. Well, it's funny because those first couple of holes, all I could think about was how much stuff I needed to do and that maybe I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So, and as soon as I stayed, the train of thought stayed down that path, then we found after 5 holes, I've got 2 options here. I have to leave. And then when I processed that, I'm like, I couldn't personally leave you guys in a 2-ball behind a slow 4-ball field. So I thought, hang on, so I took a hold to process it all. What do I really need to do? Let's go through it. And can I get that done this afternoon? I'm like, yes. Look, just push that aside and just enjoy being out here for the last time for a month. And, within a hole, obviously you guys were great. You had a, really good chat to me. We spoke about some stuff, and it was just great to be able to just go, okay, let's just put that aside and let's just go and have some fun. And then, more importantly, as you said, the mood changed, and that's the thing that a lot of people, and I do what I do, but I'm also a club level golfer that has a lot of stuff away from the golf course that I'm trying to juggle and manage, and I don't spend enough time on my own game in any facet, whether it be technical sort of training or whether it's mental training. So every now and then those things are going to break down. So it was for me. It's I love being in that position because it helps me to learn more about what happens when someone's in that state.
Yep.
So it was great. But I think having JD on the show tonight, I think one of the interrupters to focus that I know we've had a few questions about in the past is injuries. And JD's had a sort of a bit of tendonitis in his wrist and his hand and shoulder injury the last couple of months, and it's been a couple of years really. It's been and it's just sort of flared up a little bit the last couple of months. So it would be good to just get JD's sort of opinion on how that injury so far this week or the past couple of weeks has been an interrupter to sort of on-course focus for him.
Well, let's bring JD. Let's bring JD in. How are you, mate? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me on. Again, Ross, I'm doing good.
I hope my guy's looking after you over there.
He's doing a phenomenal job. Other than the hat he bought I guess it'd be yesterday. It doesn't look quite right on him. It's been bothering me a bit, but other than that, he's been doing good.
It's his, it's his signature.
You actually told me you like that hat, Ross. So that was the hat in the video.
Yeah.
Well, he's a long ways away though. He's got to see it in person to really get a true feel.
Now, JD, as Jamie just mentioned, you've got a couple of challenges there with that distraction or the injury. So how are you managing that? What does it mean to you, and how do you stop it from trying to minimize your performance?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, with Jamie alluding to juggling so many different components, and ideally you wouldn't like to have any external factors to play a role when you're on the golf course, but over the course of a 4.5, 5 hour round, and you're playing, 18 holes, emotionally trying to get through all of that in the heat of competition, it's very, very difficult to kind of go through the entire round unscathed a lot of the times. And, when you put in an injury like that, it can kind of get you out of your rhythm. It can activate the conscious mind. It can, like he said earlier, having one injury can trigger 5 or 6 other thoughts that previously you had pushed to the side, and now they're at the surface of your mind. So those are all things that I think play a huge role in kind of the spiral that can happen if you let something like this affect you. And by no means am I perfect at it. We work at it all the time, trying to manage something like that, like an injury. And you really just try and narrow your focus and make it as simple as possible. Try and really hone in on one or two possible things, like a commitment level, finishing your swing, something like that. Those two things for me, trying not to let the injury take precedent in your process. And those are, things that I think can really be beneficial in taking control over what your mind wants to tell you, and saying that, hey, this injury is important. You need to give this attention. Oh, and by the way, such and such can also be a problem for you. And I think definitely putting your focus into one area and just owning that area and making that a priority can really help kind of put your worries at ease and just manage it the best that you can.
Absolutely. So do you still find that you, in that moment in the round, I'm talking about the pre-round, post-round, in-round, you have to acknowledge that you've got this distraction from focus? Do you find yourself saying, okay, it's not quite right in this moment, but when you move on to the shot, that's when you really hone in on that commitment, the clarity of the commitment, right, the confidence, yeah. So it's not something that goes away and you can just bundle it away. You do have to acknowledge it in
sure.
In round, yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to. You can't, pretend like it's not there. I think on our 4th or 5th hole of the tournament, we got off to a semi-rough start with the injury, I would say, and Jamie did a great job bringing up, like, hey, this is here and this is not going away. Now let's tackle this in a way that we can manage it and, find a way to play good golf with it being there. You just don't want it to be your identity for the week. You just don't want it to consume your entire thought process.
Yep.
You just try and stay positive through it. And, it's something that I work on every day, and I'll never be perfect at it, but we've been working on it hard, especially this week.
Well,
Rossco, that was
sorry, go on.
Really, really interesting choice of words that you used, and it couldn't have been more appropriate in regards to, trying to avoid that the injury's there, or do you try and acknowledge it, accept it, and then create sort of a process to commit to? And what JD was talking about on that 5th hole was he's been dealing with this injury for a while now, and it's obviously building up, and it's been pretty good for a while, and then it's just come back again the last couple of months. So I think the frustration around having to perform a Q-School and have to deal with this when most other players aren't having to deal with it, because it is quite, a hand injury in golf it's certainly not ideal, to say the least. So, JD was sort of 3 over or a couple over through 5, and I could just see he was sort of just getting super frustrated that he's having to deal with this, and did a great job of managing it for the most part. First tee ball, you could see it flinched and hurt, and he sort of just pulled the ball out of bounds and made par with a second ball, made a couple of pars come, the next 3 or 4 holes. But I could just see that this was going to potentially get on top of him if we just didn't have a chat around, okay, let's just accept that this is here and let's try and grind a different, a different score today than what you typically would like to. And 3 over through 11, and he, had 3 birdies coming in to finish even par, which is great, and someone that has dealt with injuries for an extended period of time, that just naturally builds a mental strength and a resilience inside them that, that they just have to work around it. So I knew that once we had that conversation, he would find a way to emotionally process it, and he did. And today he did another great job. And but for someone like me last year, Ross, playing with that shoulder injury, it's golf's such an athletic game, and this guy's like, I don't know, how tall are you? 6'6"? About 6'6", and I don't know how much you weigh.
235.
So 235 pounds, and that's got to be close to like 100 kilo.
I wouldn't have the slightest clue.
Yeah, but just a mountain of muscle this guy is. So
beast mode activated. That's what I'm hearing.
Just the ground shakes when he hits the ball. Takes me 7 minutes to clean like the dirt out of his irons when he hits it, because there's that much turf getting removed. But for someone that's so athletic, to have an injury that takes away a sense of that athleticism is, it is debilitating. But he's doing a fantastic job. So
bring it back to, and JD, I'll come back to you in a second, but bring it back to the everyday golfer. It could be an injury. It could be a distraction from work. It could be home life. It could be you might have, like me, crashed your car or something like that. There could be a number of things going on which you just need to then acknowledge and then bring back to a level of focus to have the best possible outcome for your golf in that particular day, in that particular moment.
Absolutely. And there's, we talk about, I think the next thing we were sort of going to talk about, which is a good sort of interlude to that, is that cognitive performance is because the more distractions or the more you're dealing with, the higher quality of performance your brain needs to be at and your mind needs to be at to be able to cope with those distractions. If you've got nothing going on, your mind and brain don't have to be functioning at such a high level to still perform well. But the more distractions, I look at it as the more distractions and more things that are going on that you're dealing with is more weight added to the bar when you're in the gym. So there's more resistance. You have to be stronger to be able to still perform at a good level.
Yeah, right. Got it.
So does that make sense?
Yep. Cognitively still going through it in my mind, but it makes sense. Yes.
So I look at if someone's going through a decent amount, then are quite busy. There's got a few things going on. Let's say some challenges outside in the work life or home life. There's some challenges. We need our mind to be functioning at its absolute best to help us perform at our best. And generally, what people do is they do the opposite. Okay, when they're experiencing stress or anxiety or anything like that, they do things like maybe they might overeat. They might have a few drinks to manage stress. They do things that actually decline their cognitive performance, that decrease their cognitive performance, because that's another way of dealing with or managing the stress that they're going through. So, we've spoken about it before, but a couple of really key factors for cognitive performance is obviously really good quality sleep. Hydration, I mean, I cannot tell people how important hydration is. It is one of the, if not the most important thing to cognitive performance, and your ability to have mental clarity and just focus. And then obviously eating patterns and eating habits, the foods that you eat, dramatically impact that. So, they're 3 really simple things that all of us have 100% control over that we can sort of action to help us perform at a better level. And we don't need to be robotically great at all of them all the time. But if we are dealing with more things, that's when you want to go into lockdown mode with those 3 components and make sure you nail those, because that's when you need that cognitive performance at its highest point. And we're talking obviously golf specific, but that message is for outside of golf as well.
Yeah.
So
yes, diet, like any level of stress, you can read numerous articles online about, the impacts of stress and diet and how you tend to gravitate towards, food that sends messages to your brain that gives you some level of satisfaction, but they're just, it's a trick. It really is the brain tricking you. So, that diet part's absolutely essential. And I know I fall into both categories. I'm the person that gets stressed and, will slip into poor eating habits at poor times. And, do I have any quantifiable evidence to say that leads to poor performance? I could probably dig that up and provide a case study that there does. But I do know that in my best and my moments of more peak performance, that my diet and my approach to all of that you just mentioned has been at a much better place. So, we're just here listening, Jamie, and, we're all just out there trying to be better golfers, and I'm sure we've got challenges like, everyone listening is not an eating to perfection machine, but I guess if we just put it in the mind that if you can make 2 steps forward and not take 3 steps back, that is that's an outcome in trying to, I guess get better at that level, which would then mean that once we learn how to train our focus, which is what we could move to now maybe, we're going to be in a far better place. So how do you train for focus?
Well, if we're talking, golf specific now, we look at what focus means on the golf course. It means we get to a shot, we go through that process of gathering information. So we, analyze a number, we analyze the conditions, where do we want to leave the ball? So we're going through that left brain processing of what's the shot I have ahead of me and what would I like to do. And then we try and switch on to a really pretty high level for just a split 30 seconds or so, where we're really trying to engage in what shot we're trying to hit, really engage in our process, whether that is a visual process, whether that is a sort of a swing feel process where you're blending mechanics with shot shape. Everyone's a bit different, but having your focus connected to and engaged to that process for 30 seconds and then switching off, and then having your mind wander again and then switching on again. So that's the process of how we perform on the golf course. So we switch on for 30 seconds, we switch off for 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 minutes between shots. So we look at how do we train for that. Most players, golfers, club level, especially when they're practicing on the range, they focus for an extended period of time without break. 20-minute range session, they're there beating balls for 20 minutes without a break. That in no way relates to anything that you're going to do in a competitive round of golf. So, and you probably hit the same club for at least 5 of those minutes, maybe 10 of those minutes. So all we're trying to do is we're trying to take the behavioral patterns of a golfer in a competitive environment and actually spend more time practicing that. So whether that is, instead of being on the range for an hour, go and play 6 holes for an hour. Because that's going to be much more beneficial from a training cognitive performance and focus than it is being on the range for 20 minutes, for an hour. And, there's multiple stories of PGA Tour players. I know Jeff Ogilvy's one, Aaron Baddeley's one. There's so many that they lose their game a bit, but then they just go back to playing more. Instead of practicing on the range during an off week, they just go and play a bunch of golf. And then ultimately they start to play better. And it's not only because they're actually spending more time on their performance environment, but it's also sort of unconsciously training a lot more cognitive patterns that they need to perform in.
Yeah. Well, it makes perfect sense. And, I'm guilty as charged as being one of those players that's probably spent more than even you've articulated then. I'll whiz through 2 buckets of 50 in 20 minutes and then sit there and look for the third. And then of recent times, I've caught myself going, what are you doing? What have you just achieved? I might have just probably actually done some negative performance, because I haven't hit great shots and haven't really taken any time to process, hitting to targets or that sort of thing. I just belted some balls. So, yeah, absolutely.
Might be a really good time to test and challenge JD here with what processes we've put in place for his practice where we are actually really isolating focus and building focus during his range sessions.
Well,
So, what have you done?
JD, I'll ask you before you answer, but I'm also interested to learn, what you're doing now, but what was it like before? So don't know how long you've been working with Jamie, but before you guys started working together and before you started to become this mental performance machine, what was it like before? But let's talk about now, and then you can come back and tell us what it was like before.
Right. Yeah. So I think creating performance simulation while practicing is one of the big keys, especially for me, to really train that focus. Even when you're looking at when me and Jamie first started working together, he said something, or we had a phone conversation, and he had mentioned something that really resonated with me about that he mentioned that one shot under performance pressure or simulation pressure, whether that be on the chipping green, playing a 5-ball game, having to get 4 out of the 5 balls inside of 8 feet or 6 feet or whatever, and it coming down to that last ball and feeling that sense of pressure, a little bit of tightness in your chest, seeing how your body reacts. Just having that one rep is worth 10 times more than 2 hours of mindless practice or 1 hour of mindless practice. And just for me, I think just understanding that difference and that separation has really helped me practice smarter. In the past few months that we've been working together, I've really put a purpose to my practice, or tried to. I'm never going to be perfect. We're all guilty of losing a little bit of focus here and there, but for the most part, I try to just create that simulation as much as possible. Jamie just talked about, creating, you're not going to hit balls on the range for 20 minutes and then, grind and beat balls and then go out and play golf. I mean, you're not getting the same type of feedback that way. So, for example, this morning and the past 2 mornings, my last few balls on the range, we've been simulating the first few holes on the golf course. So I'll hit my drive on 1 and then hit my second shot on 1, my drive on 2, or iron shot on 2, and then my second shot on 2. And just try and give yourself a little bit of time in between shots, in between swings, and just create that simulation. And that's really done wonders for me and my confidence as far as training that focus and just feeling like you're prepared and that you've done this before when you actually get in an event.
Now, when did you make the decision that you had to seek some coaching around this area of your golfing life to be the next level of golfer? What did that look like? I'm interested to understand the thoughts and what was happening.
I mean, so when I first, when I finished college and I did the whole turn in pro, and, I was really digging deep to understand what separates a lot of these guys. And the line is just so razor thin, on every level of tour. I mean, even the Mackenzie Tour or the Latin America, the Korn Ferry. I mean, there's probably the thinnest line. You can't even see it anymore between the Korn Ferry Tour and the PGA Tour.
100%, yeah.
So it's just so obvious that the mind just controls so much of what you do on the golf course, and that's something that you just don't pay a whole lot of attention to when you talk about practicing. A lot of guys, and myself included, we practice 80 to 90% of our physical game and 10 to 5% on our mental game, and when it's actually quite the opposite. And so that that was a real eye opener for me. I have 2 really good coaches, swing coaches, that are really good friends of mine from back up north, that really had good talks with me when I first turned pro to say, hey, listen, this is going to be necessary for you to try and make it to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Because not everybody is ultra talented to where they just skyrocket to success. So
cool. So you made that decision. Let's give the listeners a little bit of a background into the world of JD. So you were a college golfer at Penn State. Did I get that right?
So, yep.
So what's the world of a college golfer look like?
It's rather hectic, actually. You don't really think about it much, but it's a 2-season sport. So it's fall and spring, and you miss more school playing golf than you do any other sport, collegiate sport, just because of the nature of, a travel day, a practice round day, and normally 2 or sometimes 3 competitive days. So you're missing a lot of school, and, it's just you just have to be proactive in keeping up with your professors, letting them know when you're leaving, and coordinating when you can make things up. And it's just, it's eventually you get used to it, but it's just juggling a lot of priorities at one time. But it's a lot of fun. You do it with 9 to 10 other guys, and you kind of share those experiences together. And I loved it. It was a grind, but at first you're like, wow, this is going to be tough when you're a freshman or sophomore or whatever. But by the end, it's worth it, and it was a lot of fun.
Did you have 3 years on the team? Was it 3 or 4 years?
I had 3 years at Penn State. I spent 1 year at Kent State in Akron, just outside of Akron, Ohio.
Yeah.
And transferred after my freshman year. Just a really good opportunity. I loved Kent, the guys, the team, coaches. Just a really good opportunity came up with Penn State, and I kind of just rolled with it. It was a little bit closer to home, so it was good. I love both places, though.
Now, excuse my ignorance, but there's divisions in the collegiate golf system over there. Is it NCAA and NCAA or something like that?
Yeah, NCAA, Division I, Division II, Division III. Not too sure about outside of those. I know they have like PSAC and they have different types of divisions that I'm not quite familiar with. But Penn State was Division I, as was Kent. NCAA, that is.
So who would have been some of your, contemporaries that you would have been playing alongside in your college career?
As far as individuals or teams?
Oh, individuals and teams.
Yeah, we were in a conference called the Big Ten Conference. It's, comprised of teams like Ohio State, Michigan, Purdue, Indiana, Illinois. Illinois had a great golf program. So did Ohio State. Michigan was always very, very good. I was fortunate enough to play alongside a lot of rising stars, even on the PGA Tour, even now, like a Bryson DeChambeau, Colin Morikawa, Ollie Snyder, Jans. We played with Georgia Tech a good bit, so it was cool. They're 1 through 5. Their traveling team was really, really good.
Yeah.
And it was cool to even like a Bo Hostler, Scotty Scheffler, Doug Gim, those guys, and they were all really, really cool to just watch and play alongside. A lot of them were really good dudes as well.
Mate, as you say, that line is very, very fine in terms of the difference between all of the levels of golfers. And you're this week trying to qualify for the Mackenzie Tour, and you already have some status on the Latin America Tour. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're just looking to be able to have a full schedule and use those as stepping stone into the next level. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Just to have a place to play all year, just trying to really just have a spot to play throughout the summer, and just trying to create as much opportunity as I can.
Yeah, right. So, Jamie, anything else you want to fill us in about the world of JD that he might not have let us know? Is there any other little special bits of information that you can give the listeners? Because they're all going to want to go and search up and look at JD. He's our first guest. This is
Look, obviously, a lot of the listeners, follow us both on Instagram, and we'll tag JD in a post about the podcast. JD is I think the first word that comes to mind, Ross, honestly, is stud. Like you look at someone like a Dustin Johnson, like big, strong, athletic. Like JD played basketball on his high school team. He's just a beast. He absolutely bombs the ball. I'm learning more about him this week, obviously on the golf course. Just his shot making ability, his control over his golf ball. He's left-handed, very creative player, rolls the ball beautifully on the greens. Just he's a really, really exciting golfer to watch. And, there's that fine line for me caddying this week for him where, there's been a couple of times he might be trying to hit a recovery shot, and he looks at spots in trees, and I'm like, man, like I know he's got this shot, and part of me really, really wants him to just go and hit this shot, but I couldn't live with myself if that something went wrong and it cost us 2 shots here, knowing it's a 72-hole event where you just can't have big numbers on the scorecard. But he's just so much fun to watch. And, really I definitely recommend to the followers to give him a follow on Instagram. And unfortunately, I think by what I hear, his Snapchat's a whole lot more interesting, but we probably won't get access to that. But no, look, he's he's a great player with a lot of ability, and it's going to be a fun journey. So,
hey JD, you couldn't come on without getting a little bit of stick, mate. So I think you've got off lightly, really. But
entertaining as one may assume.
I mean, he started to get stuck in me about my hat before he's like.
That's fair. That's fair criticism. I mean, we can, if we want to dish out criticism. I mean, I might just don't want him to waste $40 on two hats that might not look quite correct. But I mean, I told him to bend. He bent the brim a bit, and it looks a touch better.
I'm getting like fashion advice now from a stud. So that's what my life's come to, Rossco.
Hey, JD, I'm a mid-40s guy that wears a flat peak, mate. So I can't give anything on that front, mate. I can only receive in terms of hat criticism. So I love that hat, Jamie. I might pinch it from you.
It probably looks much better on you, Ross. If I had to, I mean, I could see that style.
Well, I'll tell you what, I might get Ross one. And we'll take a photo when we get back, and we'll get your thoughts.
Red's not my colour, so if we can go with a blue or a black. But anyway, I appreciate that, Jamie. Thanks. It'd be nice to get something from your travels. I appreciate that very much. Hey, so thank you, JD, for jumping on and giving us a really open and honest account of where you're at, where you've been. Not everyone at your level of golf in the world would be as open or to do that, but I'm sure the listeners really do appreciate you being open and honest. So thank you. And I hope one day that as we follow your journey that we can get you back on. And
I thank you so much, Ross. I appreciate that and appreciate you having me on.
Oh, man, that's our pleasure, Now, Jamie, the last part of helping, I guess, everyone understand how important focus is and, how we develop this strong mental muscle. What can we do on course to activate it? What are the tips?
I'm going to keep this one really simple, and it's something that JD and I have really activated this week with me caddying for him, is just to have, a trigger word, something that helps to bring you back to the moment. It might be a statement. I know Ryan Ruffles at Tour School last year had in his yardage book, he wrote right here, right now. So every time he opened his yardage book, they were the first 4 words that jumped out at his mind. So that helped enable him to come back to the moment. JD and I, before every shot, we sort of, okay, what's the target here, mate? And then I'd just say, okay, good rhythm here, just to help bring his focus back to, okay, I need to stay in my rhythm here. So if the listeners can just have a word or a short statement that they can use to anchor their focus and trigger their focus back into this moment, and write it on your glove, write a couple of letters on your golf ball. Just have something there that helps to trigger your mind back to this moment right now. If you've got a scorecard protector or a scorecard holder, write something in there that helps you to just bring yourself back to the moment. And that's as simple as it needs to be, and it's going to be super effective and something that we can all sort of implement and employ, straight away.
Absolutely, mate. I think that pretty much gives everyone a very good insight into focus, how to improve it, how to understand and identify and acknowledge, the in and out of focus, and some great tips there on things that you can do on the course to maintain focus from every shot, because every shot counts, obviously. Mate, what I was going to say is well done on the podcast so far. It is rating consistently very highly, and I've done a little bit of research onto how and why, because I didn't really understand how it jumps up and jumps down, but it's because of the listeners subscribing and going onto iTunes and leaving reviews and hitting the subscribe button. That affects how it rates, so we really appreciate everyone that's taken the effort to do that. We also always, it's an open invitation. If anyone has a question, anyone wants any feedback, anyone wants to share anything with Jamie or myself, you're more than welcome to do, and we'll always get back to you.
Yeah.
We just really appreciate any level of contact that you can give to us. We just really, really are inspired to keep doing this based on the level of feedback that we've got. So I can just say 10 episodes now. It's a little mini milestone. And as we spoke the other day, Jamie, to double down on this and just keep going full steam ahead, because people are enjoying what they're hearing. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I back up your comments there, Ross. I really do appreciate everyone's not only just listening, subscribing, but engaging, commenting, on posts and things that we put up. It's been fantastic, and And also, you're a big component, mate, of why it's so successful. So I really appreciate everything you do, and look forward to continuing to podcast number 20, 50, 100, whatever the next milestones are in this world. I have no idea, but we'll tick them off.
Mate, we'll enjoy the rest of your time over there. I'm missing you on the golf course, but I won't miss you on this. We might see if we can do another episode while you're overseas there, maybe from Palm Springs or somewhere other exotic destination that you seem to basically pop up in your world. Appreciate the time, and yeah, until next time on the Mental Mastery Golf Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Mental Mastery Golf Podcast by Dare to Dream. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast and head over to daretodream.com.au for exclusive access to the free video program, 8 Tips to an Unbreakable Mental Game. Join us next time on the Mental Mastery Golf Podcast.